Well, everyone, welcome to another edition of the Living Life Naturally podcast. And today, and I forgot before we started just to double check the pronunciation of her last name, Katie Nall, Ph.D. And not only does she have a PhD in mathematics education, for which I have great admiration because that's definitely not my jam, but she's also a two-time TEDx speaker, a professional member of National Speakers Association, and an accredited master trainer and certified practitioner in emotional freedom technique. Of course, we know that as EFT, with additional training in trauma, quantum, and picture EFT. So whether in person or online, Dr. Nall shows others how to dissolve their waffles, which is worry, anxiety, fear, frustration, lethargy, and exhaustion, plus stress. So a careless housekeeper and worse cook with no desire for rehabilitation, she somehow is still married to the same person for over 48 years. So welcome to our podcast, Katie. Sounds like you and I have quite a bit in common there, marriage-wise.
Oh, Lynn, thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest on your podcast. I'm so honored. Thank you.
I'm so thrilled to have you here. And I have to say, you've got one of my most favorite colors on. That raspberry color is just you. It's definitely one of your colors.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I think it's kind of funny how you say that you're a worse cook. Well, I took a certified wellness cooking course so I could instruct people, and I absolutely hate cooking. So I know how to do it. I know how to teach people to do it, but I'm with you. I'm not. Ask my family. Our family dinners usually contain me burning something.
The best thing about not being a great cook is that when the holidays come around, nobody wants to come home. They always invite us out. So there are definite benefits, Lynn.
Oh, that's great. So where are you joining us from today?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yes, where are you joining us from?
Oh, thank you, Lynn. I'm in Florida in the United States. So I'm on the East Coast, about halfway between Cape Canaveral and Palm Beach. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm over in the Brandon area, halfway between Tampa and Orlando. So we're neighbors. Are you originally from Florida?
No, my children are, but I'm not. I was originally born in Kansas, lived in Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, and Oklahoma, went to school in California and in Georgia, and then we ended up in Florida, but we've only been here since 1979.
So I'm really intrigued because just the word waffles has a different connotation for all different kinds of people. But let's talk a little bit about waffles. So explain them to us and explain why you started doing this.
Lynn, I was a late in life graduate student. In my mid-50s, I got the opportunity to go back to school to earn my dream of a PhD. I wanted to work with students who were struggling with math and test anxiety. I couldn't find anything about helping students with that kind of anxiety. So I just dropped the math and test part and I said, how do you help people with anxiety in general? Mm-hmm. That was in 2010. I found Nick Ortner's 10-Day Tapping Summit. I went through all 10 days, bought the DVD, bought the book, had no idea what I was doing. And when I saw the summit, they were talking about how to relieve anxiety about relationships and about money and about everything else. Nobody mentioned anything about math or test anxiety. I had no idea if it was going to work or not. But I was working at a college and I had a room full of students who had one class left to graduate. And that class, you might guess, was math. Now, when they told me that, Lynn, I was excited. How brilliant to save the best for last. That's not the way they felt at all. They would come into my office and I could watch the color in their complexion change. They could water the plants in my office with the sweat coming off of their hands. Some of them were visibly sick just by mentioning the word math. Mm. So I said, look, I have no idea if this is going to work or not, but let's try this tapping thing. Well, one by one, they would leave. And then they came back after a few weeks and they say, I'm not really sure, but I think I'm passing my math class. I had no idea who was more surprised, them or me. And that's when my love and appreciation for tapping came up. And what happened is I got so excited, especially after I started doing the training. I did level 1, level 2, level 3, trauma, quantum, past lives. That's very interesting. Picture tapping. I'm a supervisor, a mentor, and now I'm officially a trainer. Just by comparison, it took me 4 years working full-time to earn my PhD in math education. It took me 8 years working full-time to become a master trainer in tapping.
Wow.
And I wanted to help these people. So I would come up to complete strangers in the road and shake them by the shoulders and say, I know you have a problem. I have a way to fix it. Because I was so sold on tapping, right? Well, they would back away, as you might expect. So then I decided I'll just tell everybody about tapping and how wonderful it is. So I started telling people about how tapping could solve all their problems. And everybody wanted me to dance. No, not tap dancing. So I was trying to figure out a way to explain to people that there's an easy, self-administered, non-invasive, non-addictive way to relieve their stress. And I started thinking about all the things that it was helping people with. The worries, the anxiety, the fears. And I was like, wait a minute, we're starting to spell a word here. So when I came up with the fact that I'm a waffles dissolver, people now are being attracted to me so that I can now help them through tapping.
Oh, that's awesome. I've actually experienced tapping myself and have found it to be very, very helpful. And actually thinking about it in the realm of people in college or people in school, but especially I think college when they're math, especially because it can get very complex. I'd never even thought about using it in that kind of setting, but that is an absolutely wonderful, wonderful way of helping people out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how it works.
So tapping is what they call a somatic method, meaning that it has to do with your body and with statements. One of the things that surprises people, Lynn, is the fact that you use negative emotions. We actually talk about negative emotions that we're holding on to, which is counter to our culture, right? Our culture says you need to be positive. You need to be positive. You need to think positive thoughts. Put a positive spin on it. Well, you know what? You can only do that so much if you have all this negative just stuffed down inside of you. So saying the words out loud, allowing it to come out, makes room for the positive. The actual tapping itself starts on the side of your hand between your wrist and your little finger, where you take 4 fingers of your other hand, and you can use either one, it doesn't matter. And you tap on the fleshy part between the wrist and the little finger. And when we tap on that, we repeat a sentence so that we have it saying it 3 times. And then the next spot is on the top of your head, and you can use the right hand or the left hand or both. And then the next spot is above your nose on the edge of your eyebrow. And then on the temple between your edge of your eye and on the side of your eye. And the next spot, Lynn, is where I keep all my bags for a quick getaway. And that's under my eyes. And then from there, you go under your nose, then under your lips. And then I have my clients cross their wrists while they tap on their collarbone. And then the last spot on the basic recipe is 4 inches below your armpit, where you just thump on your ribs. So those are the 8 spots that you tap on, which hit about 96 to 98% of the traditional traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, meridians that are flowing through our bodies where the energy is flowing. And that's the concept behind it. Mm-hmm.
So I understand from what we've chatted about today that I'm going to be a guinea pig for you, and we're going to do a demonstration.
That sounds great. So I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, Lynn.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what the answers are as long as they're true for you. Okay. So the first question is, in the last 24 to 48 hours, has there been something small that's caused you worry, anxiety, fear, frustration, lethargy, exhaustion, or stress?
I could make you a list. A feeling of overwhelm.
Okay. Is there any one thing in particular that you went, okay, that triggered, that hit me as overwhelm?
Well, it's usually to do with my business, and it's when I think about the amount of work that I have to do.
Okay. And when was the last time that you thought about the amount of work that you have to do in your business?
This morning.
This morning. Okay. So when you think about that right now, from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes, where does that sense of overwhelm feel stuck in your body?
Oh, I had never thought about that. I would have to say it's probably stuck in my head.
In your head? Okay, good. And from 0 to 10, where 0 is like, no big deal, I'll get to things when I can. And 10 is the most intense feeling of overwhelm you've ever had in your life. Where would you say you're feeling right now?
At the moment, probably only about a 5.
Okay, that sounds good. Is this a true statement? Right here, right now, I feel safe.
Yes.
Okay. For your listening audience, if that's not a true statement, if you could switch it out to something that is true, such as right here, right now, I accept the way I feel. Or right here, right now, someday I hope to accept the way I feel. It's important that the client repeats words that are true for them. So you ready to start?
Sure.
Okay. On the side of your hand, have a palm facing your face, and then tapping on the fleshy part between the wrist and the little finger. You got it. You just tap right there and breathe and say, even though this morning I was thinking about my business.
This morning I was thinking about my business.
And right now I just feel this sense of overwhelm in my head.
And right now I just feel this sense of overwhelm in my head.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
And then we're going to do it 2 more times. Even though in my head, there's a feeling of overwhelm.
In my head, there's a feeling of overwhelm.
Just thinking about my business this morning.
Just thinking about my business this morning.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
Right here, right now, I feel safe.
And then last time, even though this morning I was thinking about my business.
This morning I was thinking about my business.
And right now I feel this sense of overwhelm in my head.
And right now I feel this sense of overwhelm in my head.
Oh, and right here, right now, I feel safe.
And right here, right now, I feel safe.
Now tap on the top of your head and say, this feeling of overwhelm in my head.
This feeling of overwhelm in my head.
Above your nose, on the edge of your eyebrow, this feeling of overwhelm on my head.
This feeling of overwhelm on my head.
On the edge of your eye, between your eye and your hairline and your temple, this feeling of overwhelm in my head.
This feeling of overwhelm in my head.
And then under your eye, this feeling of overwhelm in my head.
This feeling of overwhelm in my head.
Under your nose, this feeling of overwhelm in my head.
This feeling of overwhelm in my head.
Under your lips, this feeling of overwhelm in my head.
This feeling of overwhelm in my head.
On your collarbone, this feeling of overwhelm on my head.
This feeling of overwhelm in my head.
And then on your ribs, this feeling of overwhelm on my head.
This feeling of overwhelm on my head.
And then blow all your air out like a cartoon character. So Lynn, when you think about being overwhelmed, like you were this morning, from 0 to 10, where 0 is like, no big deal, I can take care of it. And 10 is the most overwhelmed you've ever been. Where's that sense of overwhelm in your head now?
Yeah, it's about a 3.
You could do that 2 more times and it will go down to 0. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, we have stress every day. And just as you mentioned, Lynn, we have a long list of things that stress us. I know that you're interested in being holistic and healthy, and taking care of stress is like one of the easiest things to do. The nice thing about taking care of the stress is in the process, you're going to reduce your cortisol levels, increase your immune system, and reduce your adrenal levels. Because when we're under stress, we're in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode, which means that we can't digest our healthy food and we can't rest and recover. So being able to recognize our stress, and just like you said, we have this stress, but we don't know where it is in our body. And then being able to unwind and release it so that it's gone allows us to make better decisions, to be healthier, to be more holistic, just as you want your clients to be.
Right, right. So is this the top method that you use with helping people to relieve themselves of their stress and anxiety?
What we just went through is something called the basic method. There are variations on it. I have worked with people who, for instance, have abreactions. And so there are other spots on your body that you can tap to kind of calm your body down. When somebody comes in with a sensation, as you did, of overwhelm, I frequently will take them into what we call picture tapping, where I have them use markers and draw how they feel using the picture tapping. And in doing that, then we tap on what the picture looks like. So you may draw red squiggly lines or a yellow circle over here or a blue blob over here. And so the tapping would be, and in this picture, I've drawn a yellow circle. And so we draw, it kind of gives that separation between there. So I do that. I also have journal prompts for clients. I have different exercises that we do to help them get through whatever limiting beliefs that we're holding on to because our body wants to protect us. And we hold on to those limiting beliefs that we've had all our life.
So then this really also can help in traumas from the past.
Oh, definitely. My recommendations are for 3 one-hour sessions. And it's usually about in the 3rd session that we actually dig into and find out why people are feeling the way they're feeling. And what's really interesting is they've done clinical studies all over the world, and they have found that tapping is more effective than cognitive behavior therapy or talk therapy, and is just as effective as something called EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprogramming. The difference is with EMDR, you've got to be sitting in front of the therapist in case you have an abreaction. And with tapping, why, you can use a mathematician across Zoom.
Right,
and
right.
More importantly, you can do it yourself. And that's what I love about it. It's a way to be able to take control of your own emotional health.
Right. And so once you've learned the process or you've taught a client the process, do they go off and practice it on themselves during the week? Unfortunately,
they do. Which means I'm constantly looking for new clients because it's such an easy process that people will go off and they have homework. And so they're encouraged to do it. I got a text the other day from someone I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. And she sent me a text saying, I just want to thank you again for exposing me to tapping. I had a very difficult day. And if I hadn't had the tapping process to be able to get through it and to manage my own emotions, I don't know how I would have done it. So it's incredibly satisfying to be able to show this to others and teach it to others. I, in particular, love it when people attend our classes so that they learn tapping in the background and more information, both for themselves, their family, and friends. And of course, if they want to go on to be certified, that level 1 is required to be able to continue on to level 2.
So I also noticed that in the background that you have a book. Would you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yes. So I have a book. Oh, I just had it out. Hang on just a second. Well, it's around here. It was just out a minute ago. Did you ever do that where it's like it's right here? Oh, here it is. Okay. So the name of my book is called Shower Blessings, and it is finding time, meditation time for those who have a busy life. Because we have a busy life, it's a very small book. And it's meant for people who want to meditate and don't have time. It got started with a friend of mine. We were having lunch one day, and I was talking to her about my meditative practice and everything. And she looked at me and she said, "How do you have time to meditate?" And I said, "Well, I do it in the shower. That's the one place I can hide, right? Away from humanity, my phone, kids, spouses, everybody." And she said, "Well, what do you say in the shower?" So the book is just a lot of stories and processes that I've used to be able to meditate while I'm in the shower.
Yes, I used to think years ago when people would talk about meditation, I would, for one thing, I would think, oh my gosh, that's really woo-woo and out there, and I don't have 30 minutes to sit on a mat up straight and kind of lose myself off into the great beyond. And of course, in reality, yes, there's that type of meditation, but for most of us in our everyday life, it's a quick, simple process. So how long does it usually take you? You're in the shower, for example. How long do you usually meditate for during that time?
Oh, it's only while I'm taking my shower. That's it. So I kind of know where the body parts are located. So I just scrub it up. And while I'm doing, I start that conversation. And I feel like, to me, meditation is a conversation. I'll tell you one of the quick stories that I have in there is that I found that it's important to meditate, or what some people might say, pray a lot, A-L-O-T. I think it's important to be able to ask what you want. And the reason why I think it's important to ask is we have children. They're grown now, but when they were little, I knew that they wanted food, water, love. I knew all that. I had no idea they wanted a pony unless they asked me, right? So I'm asking, these are the things I want, I would desire, I'd like to have. So that's the A in a lot. And the next thing is to listen. And that's the part I usually forget. I usually think that conversations are, okay, here's my list of demands. And then I go off on my way. But it's really important to listen. And so I have hints on what you might hear when you listen. Take the time to listen. One of the hardest things for me to do is the O, obey. Sometimes I hear things when I listen that I go, no, I'm not doing that. Try me again, do something different. But doing that obey makes a huge difference. And then the last thing is T, give thanks. Doesn't matter what happens, good, bad, indifferent, always give thanks. I did a second TEDx talk just recently, and I was one of 14 speakers. All 13 videos went up on YouTube. I got a phone call just the other day from the facilitator saying that TED.com refused my talk. They said it didn't comply with their regulations, although everybody at the event had gone through. I edited my talk so much. I made all the changes. And when the facilitator called me to tell me that, I said, well, I know this must have been a really hard phone call for you. He said, yeah, I was not looking forward to this at all. I said, well, I really thank you, and I appreciate you for what you've done. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to come out of this. Dead silence on the phone. He's kind of like, I don't think you understood me. Your talk is not going to be released. I said, yeah, I heard that. But, I tell people that it doesn't matter what happens. You should always give thanks, because there's a reason why something's happening. I may not know it. I may not know it now. I may not know it ever, but there's a reason why that's happening. So TED.com owns that video. I can't use it. I can't do anything with it. And I told the facilitator, thank you. What else am I going to do? it doesn't do me any good to bring in any negative or to get angry or revengeful or anything like that. That doesn't help me in any way at all, and doesn't help any of the other speakers. So I gave thanks, and I'm anxiously awaiting to find out what else is going to be happening.
So can you give me one of the, either for yourself or for somebody that you've worked with, one of the most dramatic or impactful results they've had from EFT?
Yeah. Can I tell you about one of the quantum sessions? Okay. And anything that I'm sharing with you, I've gotten permission from the client to share. So I just want to say that out loud. I had a chiropractor who walked into my office. But while she was walking in, she was holding her back, which I thought was unusual for a chiropractor, especially because she was in a partnership. So she had another chiropractor right there that I didn't say anything. Because, you wait to find out what are they here for. So she said, I'm here because I don't get paid unless I submit these reports, and I'm behind in writing my reports. I don't know what's keeping me from sitting and writing these reports. My partner said, I got to get this figured out because we're losing money. And so it was suggested I come see you. I said, okay, let's work on it. Well, I did all the questions that I did for you, Lynn. And in the process, it did come out that her 5th grade writing and teacher used to criticize her all the time, regardless of what she wrote. Well, we got down so that the intensity was at a certain level, but it wasn't moving. And usually what I found that if a level's not moving, there's something quantum going on. I didn't know what it was, but I had to ask her. I said, what's going on with your back? You're still holding it. She said, I don't know what it is, but I've got this really sharp pain in my back. I said, well, let's tap on that because we're not getting anywhere with the reports. She said, okay, we'll tap on that. When we do quantum, the client gets all the information. I don't get any of the information. So as we're doing tapping, she stops midway and she says, oh my gosh. I said, what's going on? Now, this part is very different, I'm going to tell you, but so I'm warning you. But she said, I can see I was a Roman soldier. And as a Roman soldier, my camera moves. As a Roman soldier, I found that somebody came behind me and used their sword and stabbed me. And I was like, oh my gosh. She said, yeah. And I died. I said, you died? She said, yes, let's clear that. So we cleared that part of her. Hang on, I'm going to do this. I got to get it back. It's playing around with me. Oh my gosh, it's messing with me altogether. There we go. Let's get it back out. So we tapped on the fact that she had this experience that she could remember. And the pain went away. Now, this is pain she'd had for weeks, for months, and she couldn't get rid of it. Pain was gone like that. Now, what's even more interesting is I checked in on her a week later to find out how she's doing. And she said, I had over 100 patients that she had to write on. I said, 100? I said, oh, well, how far are you doing? She said she finished them in 1 week. Once we had cleared what was going on, she was able to finish all of them. And that I'm a very misbehaving. That's so funny. I don't know where it's going. It's going funny. Hang on just a second. I'm so sorry. This is going. Let's try this. I apologize. Oops. There we go. Technical issues. There we go. But she had been trying for weeks to get finished with all these things, couldn't get through with all of them, and then ended up with, in 1 week, was able to get back on track. It's been 4 years later, and she's not had any problems since. So yeah, that's probably one of the most out of the box kind of stories that I have.
Yeah. So tell me, or do you have a last minute tip or piece of advice that you can give our listeners?
Yeah. So I had like many people, I had a tumultuous childhood, and ended up homeless for a while, ended up in a foster home, ended up hitchhiking to college back and forth, just to kind of summarize everything. And I would like to tell your listening audience that regardless of what's going on, this too shall pass. I'd like to remind them that if they're in a difficult situation and it doesn't seem like they can see the light at the end of the tunnel, to know this too shall pass. And if you're in a really great situation and things are going really well, cherish those moments, enjoy them, and love them, because this too shall pass.
Very true, very wise words. So tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm Katie Nall, PhD. So on any social media, you can find me at KATIE, N is in November, ALL, PhD. You can email me at hello@drnall.com. You can give me a phone call. You can call me at area code 772-226-0167. Would love to chat with you.
Awesome. I will put all of that in the show notes and all of your contact information. And thank you. This has been really interesting, demonstrative for me. And I appreciate the lightheartedness of it, because sometimes when you're doing a demo for something, you're just wondering what you're getting into. And I love tapping. So I think that's anytime I do that, I consider it a bonus. So that was a bonus session with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate what you're doing and the light you're spreading in the world.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us today. You have been listening to the Living Life Naturally podcast, where we're on a mission to inform, inspire, and encourage women to live their best life confidently, joyfully, and freely from what's been holding them back. For show notes and free resources, visit holistic-healthandwellness.com. And I'd be delighted if you'd follow us on socials to connect further. If you enjoyed this show, why not share it with your friends? If you found good value, chances are they will too. And of course, a 5-star review on iTunes is always greatly appreciated, as much as I appreciate you listening. So until next time, live life naturally and joyfully.